Day, and we are here yet again with another podcast. I'm, of course, joined by the M-Man. Now, today, we're actually going to talk about a subject that kind of came up literally today, and that is way retro gaming. And I'm not talking about games from the 80s like Ninja Gaiden, which the M-Man is actually playing as we speak, and getting slaughtered by those hawks.
God, fuck! It's not bad enough that there's one. No, there has to be two at the same time. Fuck! I thank God for save states. Yes, I'm cheating. Fuck you. So is the game.
I would say so. Ninja Gaiden is a very difficult game, to be certain. I just put up a review of that as of this recording today.
Hawks, I swear to God. 3 hawks. God.
The pain is delicious.
Yes, I lose my patience very quickly with this sort of thing.
Now, one of the ways you can actually get through Ninja Gaiden slightly easier is if you use the rapid fire option. It does get your sword slice out.
No. The rapid fire option isn't the thing that's getting you right now. It's the aiming and the timing, really. And for that, motherfucker.
Yes, you'll be hearing a lot. Problem. But talking about way retro gaming. Gaming initially started with Pong, of all things, which was just a virtual table tennis type of thing, for those who haven't studied gaming like I have. Now, I've actually played Pong, not on like a Pong console or like on an arcade machine or anything like that. I actually downloaded for my GBA many a year ago a Atari arcade collection. It had a grand total of 3 games on it and probably equaled a kilobyte. And essentially, it had Pong with an AI opponent you could fight, asteroids, and I forget what the third one is. I think it was Centipede. Even though Centipede, I don't think it was an Atari game. It's an amazing concept that Pong, which is 2 vertical lines and a block, I think that game still can be fun because of the simplistic nature of it. Really, a lot of the old arcade games were really simple and can still be played even today.
The thing is, with today, it would need... the only way Pong could be fun today is if it was really, really challenging by virtue of, being super fast.
Well, there is that, because it still is just the line and the dot. I mean, I played it for a little bit, but it wasn't a game I played for hours and hours, that's for sure.
Man, what if we add, mother... Thank God for shurikens. What if we had, blood, man... And like titties and a romance option in case you win with alien babes, and then have Fox News report on it as if it was something important.
Oh my God! You base it. Laser shoot. Larry 50. Journey into Pong.
Uh-oh. I'm stuck in a loop where enemies constantly spawn. Okay, and I'm safe.
That's probably one of the more annoying things about that, about Ninja Gaiden, is just, I always hate it when you can't clear a screen, It's like, you always gotta keep pressing forward. But, Pong itself is a very simple concept, but it worked for back in the day. I mean, if all you have is a hammer, what is this response to that?
Every problem is a nail.
Exactly. And, well, Pong did its job. I think, Atari's other famous game, Asteroid, still holds up a bit better because it's basically a prototypical spaceship shooter, except you're just shooting asteroids that float by, and it controls fairly well. I mean, I obviously once again didn't ever play it on an Atari 2600 or anything like that because I never even owned one. I just played a conversion on the PC, but it's one of those games where you can really just turn your brain off and just shoot rocks. I think they could be construed as drugs, but whatever. You just shoot the various rocks, and it still works. But you ever look at some of the older concepts for arcade games that I don't think you could really... Actually, no, I take that back. That there was a time, until now, with the burgeoning indie scene, that you just wouldn't see anymore. The 2 that really come to mind are Frogger and Tapper. Tapper is a game I didn't even know existed until... literally, I saw it in Wreck-It Ralph, of all movies. Tapper is basically where you send beer down to various patrons, and Frogger, of course, is you try to get a frog across the street into a frog den, warren, nest. What do frogs have?
Swamp?
No, it's like, yeah, frogs.
Lily pad? Lily pad?
No, I don't think it was one of those. But whatever the case may be, you were controlling a frog. You would not see that in the 90s, really, as a serious game. Now, I, of course, only really played Frogger on the Sega Genesis, of all things, because there's an arcade conversion for that. But it's just an interesting concept how, in the early days of gaming, there were some really far out, concepts, like Frogger, like Tapper, and many other games like that just... today, and really in the AAA market today, it's just your basic war shooter, and third-person adventure games and open world games like GTA 5 is really what lead the team. But Frogger at one point that was considered, a AAA game, and you'd see that like on a phone, or you could make a pretty good game around controlling a frog. You could actually have a story behind that, actually.
Will there be any real need, though?
No, but I'm pretty sure if you want to sell, like, Frogger Redux Turbo Super Revival, you'd have to really kind of dress it up at least a little bit.
Give it a dialogue wheel where you have Good Mother Teresa, Apathetic Alex, and Satan's Puckered Anus as the responses.
Now the man is still in his mocking BioWare phase, because on, I believe it was Imgur, or whatever you pronounce it, there's like various images that show the difference between BioWare storytelling and Obsidian storytelling. We're going to get to that, but we're covering old arcade games and old gaming in general. We'll get to the BioWare versus Obsidian debate, because I realized, just as I was saying all this, because, let's face it, I don't have a plan whenever I start these, that the MN and I haven't debated BioWare and Obsidian. However, we're not really debating it, we're just sort of being complete Obsidian fanboys. Now, before we get on to that particular subject, I would like to bring up Space Invaders. In a way, Space Invaders was one of the first really big hits in the arcades. And really, you look at Space Invaders and you look at how simple that is. You're a spaceship and you shoot other spaceships. I mean, you can play that in a web browser now. And like back in the day, there's many places I've read where Japan actually ran out of a certain kind of coin because people were playing that game so much. And it's an example of a game that, despite being from the late 70s, still can be played for fun. In fact, the man and I both played it a bit earlier today, just because. It still works, I think. It's one of those games that's like Pac-Man, that still is just, it's so simple, and yet it's still just so fun. Now, of course, that's only in short bursts. It's certainly not like, say, Ninja Gaiden, where you can actually play that game for a significant period of time. Because obviously, Space Invaders can get very dull after a while. Finally. Now, man, you can get on the whole BioWare versus Obsidian debate.
Let's stay on the retro games for a little bit more. But yeah, Space Invaders today isn't really that special because we're used to more complexity. If anything, one of the ways that one could potentially modernize Space Invaders, now I imagine this was already done, but nobody ever told me, is to essentially give it a little bit more tactics, let's say. Like have the aliens essentially have it be one of those space shooters as we know them today, except you're just you really are defending one point, but have you move in like an arc, and have the aliens come from several different directions at once, or something like that.
Basically, you've described so many games now.
The thing is, I don't play those games, so I reserve the fucking right to get shot at by this asshole. I reserve the right to be wrong.
Well, technically you're not wrong. You're just saying they need to do it, and they did do it. Great minds, I suppose. after Space Invaders, I mean, you had like Galaxian and Galaga. With Galaga being my favorite of the primordial spaceship shooters, I actually have a legit cart for the GBA. I have a lot of stuff for that console actually. For the GBA called the Namco Museum. It has a grand total of I think 4 games on it. It's kind of a rip because they could put a lot more games on the cart, but they don't. And even though I'd say it's kind of a rip, I paid like $2 for it, so I don't really feel too bad about that. And I used to play Galaga a lot. Galaga, for those that don't know, is more or less the same concept of Space Invaders, but what they did is they basically, when you play Space Invaders, it's landscape. But what's the other one called? I forget. Portrait? The portrait one?
Yeah.
What Galaga is, it's set in a portrait aspect ratio. It has a moving star field, which are basically just white dots. And it feels like you're moving, whereas in Space Invaders, you feel kind of stationary, and that's where the game can get kind of dull. And in Galaga, what you do is you shoot the same spaceships, but they have a tactic now. Every so often, one will peel off from the main formation and dive at you. Which, it seems simple now, but at the time that was sort of a game changer. And the overall game just feels much more alive, so to speak. Whereas just Space Invaders is a very slow-paced kind of game. It's interesting how those little details can really just make or break a game and can really change it. Really, Galaxian is more or less the same thing as Galaga, but the spaceship's a lot less advanced looking. And when you shoot a bit of the ship off each time. Well, no, there's a bit of the ship that sticks out. It's a little yellow line, and that's what you shoot at enemies. Whereas in Galaga, it looks like you're actually shooting like little laser beams from the ship itself, which is pretty cool. And really, it's amazing to look at how far we've come when it comes to gaming. I mean, from the earliest primordial games to what we have today. And as gaming has increased in complexity, I think a lot of arcade games still have stood the test of time a lot better than some of the more advanced games of the era. I would say they've certainly stood the test of time a lot better than many of the point-and-click adventure games. You always hear me complain about point-and-click adventure games because it's just not something that was really fun to me back in the day. I know there's a lot of fans of those, and I can certainly see the appeal. They're definitely a lot more thought-provoking than, say, Galaga, which is just shoot spaceship. But, really, they're games that I think would annoy a lot of gamers. Any gamer today can pick up Galaga and go, oh, it looks so primitive, and play it, and actually have a bit of fun with it. Whereas if you sat them in front of, say, Police Quest, they would probably have their whole fucking head explode. Because, like, with Police Quest, I think you have to follow police procedure, and there's a lot of ways you can just die almost instantly. From what I've seen, the Sierra adventure games had a big problem with just being really obtuse. And that's really what stopped me from getting into point-and-click adventure games. I had played, or at least tried to play some in the 90s, which was sort of the big heyday, and I never could figure out what to do. Now, I think the M-Man himself has played a few.
Oh yeah, I've played a few adventure games. I loved the fact that it was more character-driven, but I could never figure out the puzzles for the life of me. But then again, I wasn't as good an English speaker back then as I am now. But yeah, I just loved, if it was from LucasArts, I love the comedy as well. But with Sierra, like Police Quest, yeah, it is a bit of a dick move that you need to know police procedure perfectly. Even though, let's say me, I never once studied anything police related, so to me it's all shabby and completely unknown. Oh, and one more thing I hate about Police Quest, even though I think it's a good game overall, the map. Now, I'm one of those people who are too poor to afford 2 monitors. I'm too poor to afford a new computer right now. With this game, with Police Quest, you need to have the map available at all times for when you get inside your car and need to cruise around the city. Now, cruising around the city is actually fairly cool, and I imagine people were fucking shocked at this idea back then. But it's highly, highly impractical to have to either alt tab out of the game to look at the map, or for me it's a pain in the ass to print the fucking thing because the printer is in the other room. That's the one thing I can really say I don't like about Police Quest. But it is kind of fun to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do exactly, because there's one mission where you bring in this culprit. Don't worry, it's nothing big. Where you bring in this culprit, and if you don't do a very certain action before you escort him into the jail cells, he'll basically kill you and maybe one other person. It was obtuse because there was no hints at this. You were just supposed to know. But overall, it is a very cool idea that, for a good reason, live to see 4 sequels, I think.
I don't know, because there's a fuck ton of those things.
No, there's Police Quest and then there's SWAT. But anyways, and then there's something blue. But anyways, the blue badge, I think. But anyways, most other... When most people think of point-and-click adventure games today, they think of things like, Monkey Island, the Grim Fandango, Full Throttle if they're really old. But those games don't have a loose state. They have plenty of comedy and levity. Whereas Sierra games could be fairly dark and realistic if Police Quest is anything to go by. And they're actually more complex, really. But I still hold a special place in my dark, shriveled heart for games like Monkey Island and Full Throttle, because they really are cool, and especially for Grim Fandango. Because those were the games I played when I was a wee bastard.
When I was young, I liked to shoot the spaceships and the demons. That was easy. That was my point-and-click adventure game. I pointed my shotgun at a demon and clicked on him, and he died.
Is it any wonder, then, that I have more artistic integrity than you?
Although that's not exact... Well, I don't know. I think we probably have the equal amount of artistic integrity, just because when I was editing a video, I noticed a mistake, but I don't like to fix mistakes sometimes because I get lazy. But I just couldn't let it stand. Because I'm an artist, damn it, even if it's not drawing pictures. And I guess I do have integrity. Because, my God, whenever I edit a video of any description, it has to be perfect. It really does. And some could say that my videos aren't perfect, that there are some minor mistakes here and there. And there really are. I don't really practice, really strict audio equalization, mainly because, well, when it comes to the audience, unless you're one of those assholes who can notice differences in audio level, you're not really going to care. Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear the game? Yes. That's pretty much all anyone cares, because that's the case with me. Can I hear the people talking? Yes. Can I hear the game or whatever it is they're doing? Yes. Okay, I'm good. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But when it comes to editing, the whole thing has to look good. And we all know how much of a perfectionist the M-Man is. And I guess I am too.
Yeah, except I'm willing to spend the next year and a half working on a single title card just to make it look that much better. Even though it'll be on screen for like a minute. No, 10 seconds. Nobody will really notice it. And nobody will really notice it. Even though, son of a bitch, 2 hawks. Even though I personally notice title cards because, well, I'm an artist, so I notice these things. For instance, the guy that does Linkara's title cards. I seem to be harping on Linkara or Linkara-related themes quite a lot. What's his name? Master the Creator, the guy who does Linkara's title cards. He is essentially a little bit more complex than me, because when I do title cards for the GL right now, I'm too lazy to actually use a proper ink pen. I just use a binary pen. Ink pen and binary pen are tools within the program I use, in case you don't know. I use the binary pen because with an ink pen, there's sometimes little spaces where the magic wand tool won't reach, or it won't look nearly as good, or it'll make it more complex than it needs to be. But a binary pen is essentially like drawing in MS Paint, but with the added bonus of having pressure sensitivity. That makes it easier for me to do it in 2 fucking hours. Even though when I usually do any sort of inking, I love to use any sort of smooth look to it rather than a jagged one.
And that's how title cards are made. You lost me at pin.
But this guy, Master the Creator, he uses a lot of smoothness, but unlike me, his figures are a lot more simplistic, actually. Now, I know it sounds like I'm shitting on the guy, but I'm not, because I can actually understand when you need to do some art real quick and you gotta simplify it to fucking back. It's just that I will usually tell the commissioner to wait at least a few more hours while I make it perfect.
And then I'll be like, hurry the fuck up, I want to release the video already. I finished my work.
Yeah, well, pretend that you're Valve and just release it in a decade or so.
Ugh, Valve. You know what's funny? It's actually a thought I had the other day. How much of, when it comes to news media and things of that nature, now whether or not they're liberal or conservative doesn't really matter, because I honestly don't really associate with either one anymore. I kind of got disillusioned with both sides, honestly, to the point where I'm on the side of me. M-E. Mainly because both sides kind of are distasteful. I don't like getting into politics, but ultimately I think this is something that we can kind of all agree on. You got like stuff like Fox News and stuff like that, and they're all with their, here's this problem here, here's that problem there, and then you got the liberal press saying, oh, it's all the Republicans. Basically, each side blames each other for their own problems, you know? And one of the new pieces of news that's come up recently is apparently there's going to be this big military exercise in Texas. Now, I'm not really sure what's going to go down. Most likely nothing. But at the same time, you know, when I heard about it, I was a bit worried. And doing some research on it was actually kind of tough. The thing is, I looked up some articles on it in a wide variety of publications, and a lot of them had a very negative slant towards Texas and the people that dwell within. To the point like, are Texans extremists? And it's like, really? Are they going to say that? And it's like, I'm not even looking for, you know, conservative press, but at the same time, if I'm being insulted, you're kind of pushing away a potential audience member when it comes to that. Now, I'm not saying that Fox News doesn't do that, or conservative media in general doesn't do that for people who don't necessarily agree with it, but at the same time, when you're looking up a New York Times, if I was just standard human, which I am, and I want to look up some news, and I click on that, and they're basically insulting me, that's not really conducive to me wanting to listen to what they have to say. Because, you know, painting all Texans with the brush of, they're all crazy gun owners, well, I'm crazy and a gun owner. Well, if the shoe fits, wear it. I don't want to wear a shoe, I'm in the house. Anyway, the fact is, painting everybody with the same brush really isn't very fair. And one of the things they kind of tried to do is really paint anybody who questioned said military exercise as being kind of crazy, but at the same time, I think the people who really question it are kind of valid in their questioning. I mean, you know, it's a big military exercise going on. I'd like to know why they're there. I mean, it's not that I don't trust the military, but at the same time, you know, it does seem kind of fishy, especially when there's a map that labels Texas as hostile. I don't like that idea. I don't like my state being labeled as hostile. I don't want to get blown up. You know? So, it's an interesting thing to see, you know? When you want to go for real news, like when I say real news, because like New York Times, everybody knows about New York Times. That's like a major news organization, but when they're outright insulting me and the people within my state, it just makes me not really want to pay attention. And really kind of just shows sort of a divide, I think. I mean, everybody wants to be Republican or Democrat, but that's just not how it works in the real world. Because in the real world, you know, we're not really stratified like that. At least not really. Now, will this military exercise be something big? Probably not. It'll probably happen and I'll forget it's even supposed to happen. So, there's that. But one of the things I think news media in general kind of needs to do is they really need to try to move away from this partisanship, just because it's just so alienating. And it seems like, it's like, duh, General, shouldn't you have known that for a long time? And I have. But at the same time, it never has really directly affected me. And what I mean by that is, this is the weirdest thing. is the weirdest thing. When I went to go for news and I found myself being insulted, I actually kind of felt insulted because it's the first time I actually really felt that on a personal level, and I think that that's probably why a lot of the population just kind of feels, well, alienated. And now, man, segue from politics, please.
Fuck, I don't know.
Come on. Say something funny.
Wubba lubba dub dub.
That's not funny, you suck. Get back to drawing.
That's great. Screw you. I don't know. I have no commentary because this is happening in Texas, and well, it's not here, so who cares?
Oh, I see how it is. You're gonna adopt an American attitude, aren't you?
Well, I learned from the best. But anyways, where was I? Right, BioWare and Obsidian. Actually,
Thank God, something that's not politics.
Pause the podcast. But yeah, BioWare and Obsidian. My God, if there was a more worn out topic, I don't know what it is. But to start off, I think the best way to describe them is with an image that I once saw on the internet, is where BioWare is the equivalent of Stephanie Meyer and Obsidian is the equivalent of Dostoevsky.
And you know when there's a lot of V's and K's, you know it's... God damn it, I can't remember that word! It's the second time!
Refined, classy, dignified.
None of those are what I'm thinking of. But we're gonna go with refined. I don't know why this is a blind spot in my head for some reason, but it is.
But, okay, well, to be more fair, BioWare is closer to Stephen King than it is to Stephanie Meyer.
And now you won't be shot.
Because Stephen King is good in his own right, it's just that he won't really make you think. In his own words, he's the equivalent of a Big Mac and fries, which is what BioWare really is, Big Mac and fries.
And sadly, I have to agree with that.
They're tasty, they're filling, but they're not highbrow hoity-toity art shit. Whereas Obsidian is, because to them, a story isn't just a story, nor is it a story with quite blunt and obvious themes. Racism is bad! No shit! Well, I say this because of Mass Effect and Dragon Age Origins, where there's, you know, humans are racist.
Well, actually, I will actually speak up.
Shut up. Although in Mass Effect, granted, everybody's a racist and nobody's a racist, depending on who you know as a character there. And in Dragon Age Origins, the elves and the dwarves and the Kunari are racist pricks in and of themselves. Actually, you know what? Forget about it.
See, I was going to say, okay, by the time of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, they really got their story writing together at that point to where it was not nearly as bad as it used to be. And I would say that Dragon Age Origins is on par with an Obsidian story.
No, it's not on par, but it's close. Close enough to where... Son of a bitch. Close to where I can play a BioWare game without cringing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the best we're going to get. And believe me, over the years, the M-Man and I have debated back and forth about Dragon Age Origins. You know, we'll take a break for that from the Obsidian versus BioWare. Dragon Age Origins, man, I love that game so much. I think it's one of the best RPGs ever made, all time, hands down. Great, awesome. I think the writing is good. I think the graphics are good. I think the characters are good. I think the world is good. And the M-Man just sees it as generic. But you know what's funny? The M-Man's not the only one who believes that. Apparently, I'm in the minority when it comes to Dragon Age Origins being like this great paragon of RPG-ness. Everybody likes to point to fucking Dragon Age 2. And you can say your piece in a minute. I'm going to complain for a moment, because that's what I do. Dragon Age 2. Everybody harps on fucking Dragon Age 2. I hated Dragon Age 2. The combat was crap. The story was crap. The characters weren't as good. And overall, it felt like a completely inferior product. But people always bring it up. It's like, oh, but you're a Hawk. You gotta Start from having no money to being king, or you don't become king, but you get the idea. Dragon Age Origins just felt so much more complete. It was better. Rant over.
There's a reason it felt complete, because it was complete. You remember when you talked about how with Space Invaders, I shouldn't judge it with modern day sensibilities because it was coded in 1978? Well, with Dragon Age 2, I give it a lot more leeway, considering that BioWare was forced to make the game in less than a year.
Then why does everybody like to say it's so good?
Well, it is good because... Well, it just fucking is. Here's the thing. First and
it
foremost...
It just is. Believe me, and shut the fuck up.
Because, okay, first and foremost, the aesthetics were much better because, one, the Kunari actually looked like this weird fantasy race that does not exist. Say what you will about them looking edgier, but you know what? It's a hell of a lot better than just looking bland. And the same goes for the elves. Better than just being short humans with pointed ears, now they look like, you know, a completely different race. Because, mind you, black people are not just white people colored in a slightly darker shade. They actually have different facial features, believe it or not. Same goes for Asians. And I, as an artist, notice this type of shit. And third, I love the fact that the colors were a hell of a lot better balanced in Dragon Age 2 than they were in Dragon Age Origins, because in Dragon Age Origins they had this weird desire to use a single color palette for like a wall or like an entire area, so where everything had an orange tinge or a blue tinge or a yellow tinge, which pissed me off to no end. Because there's a time and a place to use that kind of color scheme, and it's in comic books. In video games, it just looks weird unless it's to strengthen a certain atmosphere. And in Dragon Age Origins, that was not the atmosphere. Dragon Age Origins tried to be dark and serious and slightly moody. Holy fuck! It's slightly moody, and those weird, bright and monotone colors just did not fucking help it at all. Case in point, The Witcher. The Witcher 1 had a more serious, more somber tone, and it had somber colors, grayed out, dark, dirty, but it worked because it was supposed to enhance the mood. And finally, I actually like the combat in Dragon Age 2.
And you know what? More people would agree with you than me. Ultimately, I like Dragon Age 1 for all the reasons that you said were wrong. To quote Hank Hill from King of the Hill, I sold 3 grills today with that exact same speech. Ultimately, I like the combat because it was more of a traditional RPG style to combat, and wasn't just click any attacks and it might work or not. It actually just felt more dynamic, which I know people probably disagree with me on.
No, but actually, speaking of dynamicity, that's why I like the Dragon Age 2's combat more, actually. Because the moves, not the moves in terms of the attacks that you could give out, but the actual animations of the characters attacking were dynamic. Yes, they were stylized, but they had life to them. Whereas, okay, a good example, in Dragon Age Origins, when your wizard character shoots something from his staff, it looks more like he's poking the air in front of him.
But that's the traditional RPG styling, and thus is why it's good.
Yes, but it is called rule of cool. If something looks better in a slightly sillier way than in the realistic way, then just go with the sillier option. With Dragon Age 2, your mage character twirls his fucking stick around, looks awesome.
He twirls it around like he's a LARPer. That's my problem.
But you know what? I fucking like it because it kind of adds more. It doesn't. Dragon Age Origins tries to be realistic in the story sense, but we're talking about a world where there's weirdo magic as well. That's not even that well defined on how it works. So I can take one more step into the realm of suspending my disbelief and say that twirling the stick around actually makes the spells much better. At the very least in a psychological manner for the caster. That, and it looks much cooler than just seeing a guy poke the air to send out a spell. Fuck that shit.
But that's whatever. But I think we can both agree on that at least The Witcher is an awesome game.
Indeed it is.
Just imagine if I tried to debate him on if The Witcher sucked. Oh my god, we'd be here all week.
I would literally take a month out of my life to compose an entire thesis as to why The Witcher is a great game and why you are wrong. And not only that, I would win the Nobel Prize.
Incidentally, the man showed me some a screenshot from Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. My god, does it look glorious. I know we're kind of skipping around the topics, but whatever, it's a fucking podcast. Deal with it. The graphics are absolutely amazing, and that's not too surprising. It is a Polish game. CD... you're supposed to say it so I don't sound like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, too late. CD Projekt Red.
Exactly. Definitely it looks like Poland and Russia and a variety of countries over there are definitely PC gamers, which is awesome. Which means they aren't pandering to those dirty console peasants. Meaning we get games with graphics that require supercomputers to be nitrogen-cooled to play.
Pandering to the console serfs.
Exactly. Sadly, I'm not going to get to play Witcher 3 anytime soon because my once awesome graphics card has long since died, and all I've got is a graphics card that allows me to play any retro game I want. Which is fine, I guess. It's better than nothing, but Witcher 3 Wild Hunt looks really, really good so far.
Yep. I'm actually considering buying the rest of the books in the Witcher series. I'm that jonesing for some Witcher action. Even though I hear that the Witcher novel series isn't really about Geralt so much as it is about what's her name, Cersei, the new Witcher S or whatever. And quite honestly, I don't care about Cersei. I care more about Geralt's adventures.
Yeah, because he's a cool guy. Talking about the books for a moment, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't even think to bring that up, because I actually read some of them myself, on your recommendation, actually. The first book is actually a book of short stories, little mini adventures that Geralt goes on. It's fairly well written. Of course, I'm reading a translated version, just because it was originally a Polish book series, and it's a pretty well-written book series. One of the things that I like the most about it is it subverts a lot of fantasy tropes. It's not just the old, oh, this thing is a snarly monster. The snarly monster may just be a misunderstood creature. And I really like that. It kind of like, it essentially asks the question of, like, what is the nature of a real monster? Because there's human monsters and there's beast-like monsters, and some of the more monstrous creatures aren't even necessarily evil or even really bad. And I think one of the things that Geralt has as sort of his little mantra is a bad deed done for good reasons is still a bad deed. And I really like that concept. It kind of shows that he's not. It kind of subverts the whole anti-hero. The idea of a bad deed is still a bad deed, even if it's done for good reasons, is something that really subverts the old anti-hero trope, where these heroes are dark and edgy because they're still kind of like villains, but not really. And overall, the book series just really reads rather well. I only read the first book because I ended up kind of losing interest, but that's not indicative of the book's quality. And it really works quite well. I honestly think The Witcher has definitely earned its fame. I still find it amusing that I couldn't figure out the combat at first. I don't know how many of you guys remember that, but I do. Ugh. It's like, I'm clicking it. It's not doing anything. No, you have to click, then let off the mouse, then click again. Oh. Literally, you could have programmed a robot to play the game better than me.
Well, yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Naturally, there's been some controversy saying that The Witcher is really just a rip-off or indeed a copy, a plagiarism or whatever, even though it's technically not really plagiarism, Elric of Melniboné. Though only it's close in their abilities and very close in their general looks, because both Elric and Geralt have white hair, both have weird eyes, both are albino. Both have this, although Geralt doesn't have a magic sword, both have some sort of magical abilities, even though Geralt's are lessened. But I will say this, Geralt is superior to the Elric stories. Because I read one Elric novella and one Elric novel.
Oh god, here we go again.
Elric sucks. I'll say it right out. Elric sucks balls, because I don't give a shit what the excuse is. It was written in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So there are some stories from the 60s and 70s and 80s that are fucking awesome. Why couldn't Elric be that way? Because now I haven't read it, but I hear Dune is awesome. So
Dune's boring. I'm sorry, Dune's fucking boring to me.
As I said, I never read it, so I'm just going on hearsay. But my point is, if everybody else could do it, why couldn't Moorcock? Because Elric is such a... Even as a series of short stories, it is boring because there's no real feeling of anything happening. It's just, well, things are happening, but you don't get the feeling that anything is leading up to a big thing. It's just sort of one event after the other. And I say this as a man who read The Gunslinger, which is essentially just a bunch of novellas strung together very loosely by Stephen King in the Dark Tower saga. And this shit had more of an impact on me. I'm not saying it's shit, I'm just saying that it had more of an impact on me, even though it's a similar thing to the Elric of Melniboné thing.
And you know what? I hate to admit it, but I do agree with that concept. But I still kind of like Elric of Melniboné. But the problem is with the Elric stories, at least the first few, is it really is. It's just kind of showing you things and name dropping things. You don't really get an emotional connection to any of it. It's just like stuff is happening, and this Elric dude is a cool elf thing guy. You just don't really feel any weight to anything.
He's not... Exactly. There's no weight to any of this. Because I read the first two stories in the chronological order that they're set in, unless Moorcock decided to flippantly add some more intervals. But I read Elric of Melniboné, that's the one where he fights his cousin, I can't even remember what his name is, and the Fortress of the Pearl. Yeah, let's call him Cousin Bubba Jim, just because. I read both of those stories, and that was some of the most boring shit I have ever read in my life. Because I remember reading...
Go on.
I remember reading the books 4 to 6 in the Legend of Drizzt series, and the only reason why I found them lackluster was because the translation was crap. The stories in and of themselves were actually fairly good, because even now, as I remember them as shades, they're still very interesting and I wanted to follow them. With Elric, I didn't want any of that. I just wanted the story to be fucking over so I can put the book down. Because... Okay. Because I don't get the idea that Moorcock thought this out in any fashion. I get the idea he was just making it up as he went along because, fuck it, why not? Because, here we got Iliomora, Jarkor, Shazar, Argimiliar, Picaraid, Filkhar, Rlinkren Aa. I don't get the feeling that any of this shit was even planned out or at the very least established before any of the stories were written. And even if they were, it must have been very quick, just throwing shit out there.
You know, I can actually agree, because the more I think about it, one of the reasons why I was a big supporter of old Elric was, well, I read the Wikipedia article, and the Wikipedia article makes a lot more sense than the actual novella does. The novella is kind of like, imagine if you picked up Halo 4, and that was the only exposure to Halo you ever had. You wouldn't know who Cortana is, you wouldn't know who Master Chief is, You wouldn't know who the Didact is. Even I barely remembered who the Didact even was. You're just reading these weird sounding names. And none of it was really established enough to really leave an impact. It just seems like Moorcock was kind of like, ooh, this will be cool, or oh, that'll be cool, or this might be cool, without any real narrative focus, I think. Because, like, Lord of the Rings, I don't like Lord of the Rings. I can never get started in that. But everything's really explained in that. You got a good grounding for for the things in those books. Whereas, you go like, oh, this exists, or oh, the chaos gods exist. Like, chaos gods? What? Huh? You just don't really feel like the world was really crafted. It just feels like it's just, here's stuff. Read it.
Exactly. And it's like, now, I never read a single Conan story, but did the Conan stories by Robert E. Howard have this kind of problem?
Yes and no. The thing is, the Conan stories were very small in scope. Because you gotta remember, Conan was a lot like Riddick, in a way. He basically would just, kill stuff and get money. Now, Conan was, of course, a lot more intelligent than his later incarnations would show. But really, it would establish a certain segment of the world, but it wouldn't really explain too much. You didn't really need to know that much, because he wasn't really doing that much. You gotta remember that. I think later on his worlds would get fleshed out, but then again, for me, when I got into the Conan stories themselves, there was this huge, lengthy preface that sort of filled in all the gaps anyway, so I don't know. It's hard to really say.
Yeah. See, this is the kind of shit this podcast is for. Us going over fantasy, science fiction, and video games, not politics, as you wanted.
Hey, I stopped talking about politics really fast. I just wanted to mention that I might get my ass bombed because I'm hostile.
Yeah.
I'm only hostile if you don't like Dragon Age 1, okay? So long as the U.S. military can believe that Dragon Age 1 is one of the greatest RPGs of all time, we won't have a problem. I will not start a partisan movement, okay? I will not throw a Molotov cocktail at a tank, I promise. Just say Dragon Age 1 is good, and I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine. But you better not say Dragon Age 2 is good, because I'll just declare all-out war. I will be a gorilla. I will eat bananas all day long. Although in all reality, I don't like bananas that much. I don't find them very flavorful. It's the food podcast, but seriously. Let's see, where were we? We were debating BioWare and Obsidian before we went on a massive tangent. As we
yes. Yes. BioWare and Obsidian. Because with BioWare, if I had to sum it up in some very short words, BioWare deals with archetypes, whereas Obsidian plays with them.
I'd almost say that BioWare does archetypes and Obsidian deals with characters more than anything else.
Actually, that's an even better way to put it. BioWare deals in archetypes, whereas Obsidian deals and plays with characters.
I got an even better one. BioWare deals in absolutes. Obsidian doesn't.
Oh, God. Yes, because even with the game KOTOR, Obsidian kicked BioWare's ass in terms of morality and story.
Oh yeah, it really did. That's why I played KOTOR 1 a lot. But I played KOTOR 2 way more. When it came time to get a replacement copy for KOTOR 2, or a replacement copy for KOTOR 1 and 2, guess which one I chose? KOTOR 2 first, because I love that game way more. I think the big problem with BioWare writing is, at least until the later games like the Dragon Age Origins and Mass Effect, is it was very hard to form real emotional attachments to the characters. KOTOR 1, I think, really had some of the weaker characters. You had the generic old man, and then there's Karth. Karth is literally the most generic dude of all time, I think. But I still kind of liked him. To be perfectly honest, before I got this sort of review mindset where I picked everything apart, when I played KOTOR 2, it resonated with me more because I felt like these were regular people, real people like me. You know, nobody was famous, nobody was super powerful. We were just out there trying to, save the galaxy from certain doom. Whereas in KOTOR 1, you felt kind of like you were a celebrity. You know, you're like one of the big three. The big three, of course, being Han, Luke, and Leia. Chewie doesn't get counted because, well, racism. But anyway, but yeah, you felt like you were one of the big guys, And let's face it, in real life, I don't feel like I'm some big shot. I feel like I'm just a regular person, So when it came time to play KOTOR 2, I was like, oh yeah, Karth, he's like this big cool guy, whereas like Atten is just, another random dude like me.
Pretty much. And the other reason why Obsidian is far better than BioWare is that Obsidian does not, even if it does deal in a traditional story like the hero's journey, it will still somehow add something to make it stand out. Whereas with BioWare, well, there's the BioWare story chart. We all know how that goes.
Yeah, but I think once again you kind of need that almost.
No, you don't really. Not really. The thing is, you only use that if you want something that's easily marketable and easily sold and easily digested by the masses. Hence why, for instance, Fallout 3 is inferior to Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 3 is generic good guy, bad guy, let's save region story. Whereas Fallout New Vegas has such moral grayness and nuance, and there is, and it follows the idea of like, at first it follows a revenge story, then it follows a, let's establish something story, and then it follows a, let's keep the peace here story by defeating whoever, by gathering troops. It has three different stories that are all strung together that make a narrative, logical, and character sense. And, even to this day, by the way, the General and I disagree on whose side anyone should side with.
Now,
for example,
well, go on.
Where he is, I almost said NRA, where he is for joining the NCR and supporting them, I'm all for the wild card option. At first I was going to join Mr. House, but then he wanted me to do something that I didn't agree with, at which point I said, fuck this shit.
Now, if you actually break it down by chart, now, for those that don't know, in Fallout New Vegas, this isn't really a spoiler, this is how the game starts. The game starts up, you're supposed to be a courier, you get shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave. But you don't die, and you gotta go figure out who shot you, and basically, it comes down to choosing from a variety of factions. You can choose the NCR, who are your generic good guys, so to speak. But they basically represent order. However, it's an interesting concept of that order. If we went by the old chart of alignments, they would be lawful good. They represent the law. But as we all know, the law can still be corrupted in some ways, and in the game it is. You then have the, almost called them the Vox Populi, that's from a completely different game, Caesar's Legion. Although I do like how they pronounce it Caesar, because that's apparently how it used to be pronounced, and it just sounds cool. You got Caesar's Legion, who are basically lawful evil, I suppose, because they have laws, but they're evil, mainly because they are oppressive. They're anti-intellectual. They enslave women and a variety of other... I almost said a variety of other races, but they don't. They enslave people, basically, but not always. How exactly does that work?
Here's the thing. They enslave whichever people they get, but they take care of them to the point where they're slaves with benefits, let's say.
So basically, it is, in fact, more like the Roman Empire than not.
Yes. Basically, yeah.
And then, of course, you have Mr. House, who is...
as he likes to call himself, a benevolent autocrat.
So, true neutral, I guess, is the best way you could say it.
No, I wouldn't really say he's true. Actually, yeah, true neutral in the sense that he only that he adapts to a situation so that he can suit it to himself, instead of wanting a balance between good and evil. All he's interested in is running New Vegas, and that's it.
And really, I think that's the most interesting thing about Mr. House. And you know what? This is a minor spoiler, so if you haven't played the game, don't play some music, cut off your own ears, whatever the case may be. Don't do that. I'll get sued. But anyway, later in the game, when it comes time to side with a variety of factions, you can side with Mr. House, and he does present a good argument. All he wants to do is run New Vegas, turn it into like this, big economic powerhouse, and then eventually build colony spaceships to go colonize Mars, because Earth is a bombed out wasteland. So start over. That sounds good, right?
Indeed.
Until he tells you to go kill the almost called them the Armageddon Steel Legion. Where is my brain today? You have to go kill the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, the Brotherhood of Steel has been fairly friendly to you, the player, potentially. Now, there's ways the game can be played in so many ways that you could hate the Steel Legion and just say, who are they again?
Brotherhood of Steel.
Whatever. You can hate them and just say whatever. Now, what I've read is that they cut out the option to not kill them. And I think that was a really good idea. And I say this because it makes the moral quandary that much better. Because obviously anybody would choose, okay, House clearly seems to be the best faction. He wants to, evacuate people from Earth. And, well, if we can talk the Brotherhood of Steel down, then so much the better. Let's side with them immediately. Fuck the NCR, they're not that good. And certainly not the Legion. But I think it adds that one little bit of moral ambiguity that really makes the story work that much better.
Exactly. And it's at that point that I pretty much told House to fuck off, and I think he attacked me at one point. I can't remember. I just remember I blew him apart so he wouldn't suffer.
He's coming right at us.
Exactly. And then I picked the wild card option, where basically I'm the guy that rules New Vegas. Now, the wild card option, I would say, is purely also neutral.
No, I think it's more neutral good.
No. Because how New Vegas ends up under the wild card option is dependent on your morality. So it's true neutral, but it can expand to neutral good or neutral evil depending on the player.
That's true, actually.
And quite honestly, I prefer that option to all the others because, one, I don't want the NCR because they're essentially going to be the same government as before, corrupt politicians, back-scratching, oligarchical motherfuckers. I don't want Caesar's Legion because it's Caesar's Legion. We already described what they fucking cruise. They're essentially what Randall Flagg is in The Stand, except a little nicer. And I don't want to side with Mr. House because I don't want to kill innocent people in his name because, well, no matter whether you agree or disagree with the Brotherhood of Steel, they generally don't go out and murder an entire population, whether it be a small town or otherwise. So I can't really go and do that to them. So the only thing that I can really choose to do is just try and rule the city myself. Now, I think there are some smaller elements where you need to complete them to where New Vegas would be in a better state than if you didn't do them and it would be in a shitty one. I just don't remember what they are.
I think there's some water pump quests, something like that.
Yeah. But you still agree that the NCR is the best there.
Exactly. Yeah, it might be corrupt, but it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. If you look at Oblivion Entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Oblivion Entertainment. They're the best, man. They made this Oblivion game with the most morally ambiguous story of all time. You had at least 50 different types of sword, and that was just the sword, man. There's I'd like to have the sliding technology to go to that universe, that's for sure. Just imagine a universe where you had all the great RPG... No. You had Obsidian become as big as Bethesda, so they had the budget and the story.
God. But anyways, you were saying?
As you can see, with Obsidian Entertainment, it does lend itself to a lot more debate as to what is good and what is bad. Whereas, Bethesda games and BioWare games by extension, there's not really much wiggle room there. It's either you become, Jesus or you become Adolf.
I always prefer the term Satan's puckered anus.
Well, I don't like that mental image. Because, in Mass Effect, what choices do you really have,
The name itself tells you Paragon and Renegade.
And it's like, okay, you can either be really good or, yeah, he's not bad. I wouldn't know if I'd call him good. He's okay. He's an okay guy.
Ugh.
I think that was a big problem with the ending of Mass Effect 3 to bring up something that I think caused a lot of problems with fans of the series, including myself. See, the thing is, I think the reason why the backlash took a little while to get started was solely because you finally played all 3 games of a really good series. Don't get me wrong, I love the Mass Effect series, but that ending, I think a lot of feelings of legitimate betrayal. Because when you're playing it like, yeah, we'll save the galaxy, and then you don't get to save the galaxy. It's like, I think a lot of people felt gypped by that, because you didn't get a good option. You'd played through the whole series trying to do your absolute best, and they didn't even give you a real chance to do anything.
And that was... Sorry, continue.
And it was really unsatisfying, I think, because you didn't even get a good boss fight at the end. I mean, these are still games after all; they're not movies. And I think you could have. I think they could have really handled a good boss fight, And I think the whole Crucible concept was real. Let me put it like this: the Crucible must have hurt. You know why? You have to ask why.
Why?
Because as big of an ass pull as that was, they had to really dig deep for that. Because at no time in any of the games was that ever hinted at. And I don't even know why they did it. I'm pretty sure many people have talked about it. And I know there was the indoctrination theory, but I don't like that just because I don't like the idea of Shepard not being able to save the galaxy. Because once again, what's the point, And I know that might be like, well, that's the point, John. What's the point? You don't always get to win. Well, you know what? It's kind of like having Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and they don't find him. Why did I just sit through the movie if they didn't find him? Well, you know what? We showed up at the planet, and he's not there. Movie over. Yay? Real life can have, anticlimactic endings and things of that nature. But you know what? When I play a game, I expect to have a good resolution. And really, it would make more sense for there to be a better resolution than this Crucible nonsense. We've seen Shepard go up against Reapers. We've seen that. We know he can do it. Okay? So why not have the ending simply be where Shepard has to fight... what the fuck is his name? Harbinger? Yeah, Harbinger. That's his name. I haven't thought about this in a while. Fight Harbinger. Either be it in a boss fight of some description, and you could do it. I mean, Final Fantasy does it all the fucking time. Where they fight God, and Shin Megami Tensei is where they fight God all the time. So what's so hard to imagine here? But you know what I think would have really worked quite well?
A dialogue battle?
Yes. Where Shepard can basically make a case for organic life. And to where literally Harbinger stops killing everybody. And he takes all the Reapers and leaves. I think that would have been great. It would have made a lot more sense than, oh, here's this AI that's controlling all the Reapers, but then you had to build it yourself. And I would have liked to have seen a dialogue battle, and I would like to have had that dialogue battle really reflect all the choices you made throughout the game. If you chose to save the Geth, I think that should have been something you could have easily brought up and said, look, as you can see, organic life and synthetic life isn't fighting anymore. We've reconciled, and now we're working together. And I really think that would have made for a much better and much more satisfying conclusion than you can choose one of three endings.
Yeah, but the thing is, you gotta remember, basically somebody leaked the original Mass Effect ending where you would basically have to side with the Reapers to fight against the encroaching dark matter, which was established earlier in the previous games. Or tell the Reapers to fuck off, and you were gonna do this thing your own way. But because somebody leaked it, they basically threw a hissy fit, and what's his name, Casey Hudson and Mac Walters, they shut themselves off in a room for a week, wrote up a draft, and told the programmers, the animators, the voice actors, the coordinators, the choreographers to do this. They had no input from any of the other writers. They had no constructive criticism, which they always have in BioWare's writing staff. They just decided to do this quickly so they can have something. And that's why it sucked so much. Because Mac Walters and Casey Hudson aren't exactly people whom I would call philosophers in terms of morality and whatnot.
So basically, they weren't artists, and they certainly didn't have any integrity.
Exactly.
Which I think is really what, they could have capped that series off, and it would have been so easy, Just make it, if they just made it a generic Final Fantasy-style boss fight, where you fight God, and you kill him, game over, that'd still be better than choose one of these three shitty endings that nobody wanted, I can't imagine what Obsidian would have done. I really don't. Because it would have been something legitimately thought-provoking.
Well, what can you do? But, in other news, Mass Effect 4 is being made.
What?
Why? I don't know, but it will be interesting to see. Because, okay, I even thought about this ages ago. Okay, what can they do? What can they do? Can they make a sequel? No. Because essentially, it's a complete fuck-up of the entire lore of the series. So by extending it, by making a sequel, they would have to take some time out of their game to explain how everything got fucked up and how they will unfuck it up. Whereas I doubt that most people would care about that, given that there are some people who genuinely don't like the Mass Effect 3 ending. Now, can they just make interquels, prequels, sidequels out the ass? Yes. But it won't last long. Eventually, people will get fed up with it and fuck off. Can they reboot the entire series? Yes, they can, but that would cost them a few fans, I imagine. Because it would essentially be saying this shit never happened, and what you experienced there is void and null from here on out. Essentially, it would be the new 52.
Yeah. You know what you could do?
What?
There's two things you could do to make it worthwhile. Number one, you can have something completely retcon Mass Effect 3. That's Mass Effect 4. It completely retcons it. It could be like... you can even have it be like Shepard got captured by the Reapers or something, and what he experienced was like this big nightmare thing, and so Mass Effect 4 he wakes up, and he's got to stop him for real this time, That could work. I'd buy that for more than $1.
I wouldn't buy that for 50 cents.
But, let me tell you something that would make it work even better. You make the Mass Effect 3 ending real, but no matter what ending you chose, the galaxy still is kind of beat up. And you introduce a new character. Oh no, this is a radical idea. A new character, what?
Oh my god, no. You know why that wouldn't work? Because I know this one guy. And when there's one of those guys, there's 10,000 more, because this guy's standard McDefault, as Razor Fist would say, for the human race. He would basically... This guy I know. He would be so crestfallen that Shepard is no longer the main character. He talks a little bit like the following. Man, with no Shepard, the series is no longer cool, because without Shepard it's not Mass Effect. Because Commander Shepard, he's the face of Mass Effect. He has been from the beginning. he would not like the fact that his boyfriend, Commander Shepard, is no longer in the game. And thus, most people wouldn't like the fact that most of them aren't in the game.
Yeah. Because, like, you know, if you remove Shepard, you know, you could have a whole new character, and then basically, you know what you'd have with the whole galaxy rebuilding? You could have Space Fallout 3. Or New Vegas, or whatever the case may be. Because you got to rebuild all the shit that got blown up by the Reapers. And I think that would work. I think that could definitely be good. There's the whole galaxy of adventure you'd have. You'd have to make sure shit didn't fall apart. And a new character would breathe new life. Because we saw Shepard's story. We saw it in 3 fucking games. And it worked well.
Indeed it had.
But just move on from Shep. You know, it's not like with Halo. You know, Halo is Master Chief's story. Okay? Master Chef is needed. Because that's what he's there for. And, you know, I don't really have a problem with Master Chef still being the main character because, well, his story isn't over with yet. Just bringing Shepard back, I think, would just really set the series back a bit, you know? It would just be retreading the same old areas. Now, if they had done it like Halo had, because Halo was always open-ended. You didn't know... You always knew Master Chef wasn't going to die in Halo 3. You knew that. It's pretty obvious. Mainly because you played that. So, there's no more to really evolve Shepard's story at this point. So just let him go. Maybe, you know, let him live. Let him live, you know? Let him live, but have him be like an admiral. And you're like this new guy that's come out. That'd be cool. I think the biggest problem with being Shep was you were just playing a character. You were literally taking the concept of role-playing to its fullest extent. Because you weren't playing a character based on you or based on anything. You were playing Shep. And I think that was really the weakest aspect of Mass Effect. Is you couldn't really displace yourself onto the character.
I disagree. When you were playing Shep, you were playing a shell that had the name Shepard plastered onto it, but Shepard in and of himself was not exactly a character. He was something for you to project onto. Whereas Aaron Jensen was more of a character.
Yeah, you know, you got something there. I guess my biggest problem was in Mass Effect 3, Shep stopped saying the stuff you wanted him to say. Sometimes you'd get the gist of what he'd say in the little dialogue option, but he'd say something completely different. It's like, I didn't want you to say that. But, you know, in all reality, they just need to kind of move on from Shep and give us somebody new. I think that's what really kept KOTOR, all 2 of the games, fresh. You weren't revving twice. I mean, you started out as this guy who was basically leader of everything, who could be the leader of good or the leader of bad. And in KOTOR 2, you were just a guy that nobody really liked and really didn't have that big an impact on the whole galaxy as a whole, which was, I think, a lot better. So for Mass Effect 4, you're just a guy, just a generic troop who happens to have a ship. That might actually make for a better story.
But see, that wouldn't be epic enough, man. Because, like, when we play Mass Effect, we want to be Space Jesus. And if we're not Space Jesus, then what's the point of playing the game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is would definitely show up on so many forums and so many shitty webcam videos. It's not even funny.
It's a shame because there's so many dude bros playing this shit.
You know what's sad? Does it make me egotistical to not want people like that to play that?
No, it doesn't, because I feel the same way.
It's not a matter of egotism. It's just, I know they're not going to understand it. They're going to be like, I don't get why you can't just shoot them. Because real life isn't just shooty, shooty, shoot, shoot. And so it's like, you can't go from COD to how do you do galactic politics, you know? And I don't like the idea of dumbing down the game so far. it's not even really dumbing down. Like, I can understand somebody who just wants to get in a game and shoot the bad guys. You want to shoot the mean men so they stop beating up the peoples, right? That's so mean what I just said, but I don't care, okay? You shouldn't... An RPG should be more complex than that. You know, and Mass Effect 3 skirts the edge on casual, I think. It really does. It's not... See, like, talking about casuals and stuff like that can really make you sound like a gamer elitist, but I think it is a valid issue more than anything else, because as you make a game simpler to appeal to a wider audience, the game itself loses something. Casual gaming is not a bad thing. You know, the most casual games of all are arcade games, which is literally just run to the right and shoot the bad people until they stop moving, you know? But really, an RPG has always been meant to be something more. It's something that really stimulates your brain more than it does your emotions. And once you remove that, what do you have?
A casual fest.
I guess you have a bastardized version that nobody's gonna like. The casuals are gonna think it's too complicated, and the fans of the not necessarily the franchise, but the fans of that style of game are gonna find it too simple, and nobody's gonna be happy.
Pretty much.
Eventually, you just kind of got to stop compromising and just stick on this. This is going to be an RPG. You're not going to be able to get into the game and just start shooting people left and right. You're going to have to think, you're going to have to know what you're going to do, and when you're going to do it. If you want to play a third-person action game, get Gears of War. Simple as that. That's what it's there for. You got third-person action, you got first-person shooters, you got RPGs. They need to stay like that. You can have a first-person RPG, you can have these different types, but when you try to turn an RPG into a third-person shooter with RPG elements, it just... nobody's happy. Especially the fans. And before we call it an episode, there is something funny that the man and I thought of today. We're not harping on Spoonie. He put out a video, so he's...
Oh God! Are we seriously gonna go around to his house and beat that dead horse that's lying in his yard again?
Well, yeah. Somebody's got to do it.
Oh God! Okay. Because even I'm starting to feel like we're being bastards about this.
Oh, fine. If even the man thinks we're being a bastard about it, then you know we have to be being bastards about it. So fine. Spoonie, you're awesome. If only I was as popular as you.
He's still getting too much money for what he's doing.
Well, he's not that kind of reviewer.
Oh God!
I got to do it. Yes, I did. What prize do I win? Nothing.
I'm kicking the balls.
I don't want that. That hurts.
Okay, then how about my boot up your ass?
That also hurts.
Okay, then how about I just take a shit in your bed?
Can I just have, like, one free internet?
You get to have one link to an old site that's no longer in use.
I'll take it. But in any event, I'm GeneralLotz.
I'm the M-Man.
And we shall be signing off yet again.